All right, today we're talking about releasing the past to rise. And if you've watched the previous videos, you know that we're talking about what we need to do before we even set our goals for the year, how we can get back on track if we've gotten off track, how we can give ourselves new energy and things like that. And a part of this process, the next step I will say is that we have to release the past. In the last video, we wrote a letter to our younger selves, wrote a letter to our future selves, and wrote a letter to our current selves. And we even did kind of a year in review where we look back over the previous year to see like what went well, what could have gone better, and what we can do differently in the future. This process right here is all about not staying in the past, but like looking at habits and things that did not work well for you before, right? You may have experienced failure when it came to business. If you've watched my video, I'll link it here where I talked about how I was laid off from my job and then entered a toxic relationship, lost all my money, started a business, stopped the business, and then got in alignment with the Lord and things started to turn around in my life. And so the reason why this step is so important, you may feel like, why can't I just set my goals? Well, it's so important for us to get to the nitty gritty of like, what happened to you? Like, when did it happen? Why did it happen? And how can you not repeat the cycle again? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. And if you do not want the same outcome that you've received time and time again in previous years, then you need to approach things differently. And so that's what releasing the past to rise is all about, releasing what happened to you and moving beyond it, using it to propel you into the future. Okay. So at this point in the phase, when I'm working with women, I often say this is the most important part. We're pausing, we're reflecting, and we're releasing, right? We're acknowledging what happened. We're giving it a moment. We're reflecting over it. We're holding space for it. And we're also holding ourselves accountable for what happened. And then we're releasing it. So there's three things that I want you to focus on. Get out a pen and paper, but also if you haven't already, please download your digital copy of Write the Vision Beyond the Board, A Purposeful Path to Vision in Action. This is something that you need to do before you sit down to set your goals, before you sit down to create your vision board. This is what you need to be doing. So the link is down in the description. Go ahead and download that thing. It's going to give you all the same tips that I'm giving you right now in more detail. It's going to give you a place to really write and reflect. So grab it so you can be a part of this activity. So, the first thing that you need to do is you need to think about the good, right? The good things. What have you accomplished, right? Take a moment to really write down what you've accomplished, not just in the past year, but in your lifetime. What have you overcome? And I don't want you to write down like just your, like you graduated from this or you have this certificate or you've done that. No, I want you to write down things like, I got out of an abusive relationship. I was able to save $20 last month, much more than I was able to save in previous months. I want you to think about the things like that. For some on the outside looking in, they may feel like, okay, that's not really an accomplishment. Yes, it is, because it is an accomplishment to you. You moved the needle forward and you did something differently than you've done in previous years. Okay. So I want you to write that down. That's the good. Now, I want you to write down what you might consider the bad. Okay? And let me give you a description of what that might look like. It can be mistakes that you've made, setbacks, or disappointments that still linger in your thoughts. This type of stuff I like to call invisible bullies. It's the imposter syndrome. It's the words of others that have been playing on repeat in your head, even if the people are not around you anymore, it's still a way that like you think about yourself. It's how you see yourself. And so I call it the bad because we don't want any of that in our head anymore. So, but I want you to write it down because the thing about it is oftentimes things may have happened to us, we've made mistakes, and then in order to recover from that mistake or that setback, we add on or we incorporate new routines or new habits that don't necessarily heal us from what we went through. It helps us to get over it and sweep it under the rug. We never actually confront it. right? We never actually deal with the thing. So by writing down the bad, we've already talked about the good, write down the bad, the mistakes, the setbacks, or the disappointments that still linger, write it down. Take as much time as you need to capture all those things. Okay? Don't sell yourself short. Write it down. Don't stay in it. You might shed a tear or two, but I want you to write down. That's why we start off with the good. We start off on a high note. All right? Write that down. And then finally, I want you to write down the ugly. The ugly is the moments that made you question your worth, your calling, or your ability to begin again. I talked about this in a previous video. I'll link it in here where I just felt like a failure. Like I was trying all these things. I'd written a book, started a consulting company, but I had to shut down the book. And even though I'd written the book, I just didn't feel successful in it. I'd come from this really great corporate career and I found myself unlucky in love, dealing with friendship breakups, dealing with all the things, right? And I just did not know what I could do to get myself out of this. So I felt a lot of like self-worth. I felt like I'm not worthy enough to think a certain. I went from being delusional and overly confident about myself to feeling like I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this life that I've been given because I'm trying all the things and nothing is working. There is no fruit coming from it. There's absolutely nothing happening, right? How can I move forward, Lord? What can I do? Um, I wrote it all down. I left it on the page. The good, the bad, the ugly. And then when I wrote it down on the page, the most important thing that I did was surrender. I remember I was staying, it was 2021, and I was in my apartment that I had at the time. And I knew that, when my lease was up, I was going to have to move because I just couldn't afford, I wasn't making enough money to sustain my lifestyle there. So I knew I was going to have to move back in with my mom. This is after I've already relocated, from the city after my corporate job. Like I moved back, moved out, had to move back again, right? This would have been my second time moving back in. And so I felt like a failure in that because I'm like, I'm an adult. I'm supposed to be able to do this. I've never had to, this is a new space that I'm navigating. But I remember one particular day and I was like, Lord, I was fasting, I was praying, and like there was nothing. I wasn't hearing from the Lord. I wasn't getting any direction. The only thing I knew I had to do was move back. That was the only thing that I clearly knew that I had to do, but I wasn't receiving any other word from the Lord. And so I remember going in my closet because you're supposed to go in your innermost room. So I went into my closet. I thought about War Room with Priscilla Shire, and I went in my closet and I closed the door. It was completely pitch dark, and I have never cried like that. It was like a wailing. It was almost, I was grieving. I didn't know why I was crying. I didn't know where it was coming from. Like in that particular day that I was living in was okay. I knew that I was going to have to move, but like you would have thought that I don't know. Now that I'm talking about it now, I was grieving the life that I wouldn't be able to go back to. The corporate life, the me before that version of me, I was grieving it. And I was allowing myself to be sad about it. I was allowing myself to reflect on all the good moments, the bad moments, all the things. I was allowing myself just to be there. And in that closet that day was a big surrender because I said, God, I don't know what to do, but everything that I do without you is not producing fruit. Is not, it's not going anywhere. Like it's costing me more to do life the way that I want to do it, which is I'm not out here, doing anything illegal. I am literally trying to do the work that I feel like I've been called to do. Um, but things weren't panning out. And I realized, like I've said in previous videos and maybe said on this video, is I was doing it without the Lord. I was writing my list, I was setting goals, I was doing all the things, but I wasn't making sure that it was in God's will. I wasn't making sure that I prayed about it beforehand. So if you don't get anything out of any of the videos that I ever post, just know that whatever you're supposed to do on this earth, you're not going to be able to do it successfully without the Lord. You're not going to be able to sustain that thing for however long if you're doing it without the Lord. We see a lot of people fall from grace. We see a lot of millionaires who lose all their millions. We see all of that. And that doesn't mean you might be thinking, well, I know people who don't even believe in God and they're doing well. They're doing well now, right? They're doing well now. But there is, all of us have to pay a price for not following the Lord. And I don't want to harp on that too much, but I'm just telling you about my life and the decisions that I made and what got me out of that space. And so when I opened the door and I came out of the closet that day, and it was completely dark. It was probably dark in the apartment by then too, but I walk out and I'm just like exhausted, a level of exhaustion that I've never felt before. But there was also this relief. That's why crying is so good for us. I felt this relief. I think I probably took a shower, journaled a little bit, and I started back packing up my things because I knew no matter what, I was going to have to move in about a month or so. So, um, I had to release, I had to grieve what was so that I can be prepared for what was on the way. And that grieving did not end when I opened that door and walked out of that closet. It did not end then. It took a while, right, for me to live life, to see God show up, to pray, to cry out, to do all the things. But I was doing the work. I was reflecting. I was reminding myself of the good things that I had accomplished and was accomplishing. I was allowing myself to acknowledge the mistakes that I had made, to take accountability for the setbacks and disappointments. And also I allowed myself to think about those moments where I felt unworthy, because every time I had the thoughts of unworthiness, and even if I said it out loud and articulated it to a friend or someone close to me, like a family member, I would remember like, but that's not who you are now. That's not your story. That is a trick of the enemy to make you want to stay there. So it's okay to acknowledge that that's how you felt, but that's not who you are, and that's not where you are. So if you're liking what you're hearing and you're ready to set goals, I promise the next video, we're going to actually start working on our goals. Now that we have laid the foundation, we've done the hard stuff, we've done the hard stuff, and now it's time for us to move forward and set goals, realistic goals, smart goals that are going to move us forward into the future. Okay. So I'm happy that you showed up. Please come back again next time around. And if you enjoyed what you watched thus far, please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the things, because I am here just as a vessel to make sure that you reach your full potential in Christ. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.